F1 2024 is here, and so am I to help you decide whether or not it's worth getting. And I would say for the vast majority of people, no, it's probably not worth getting, especially for the retail price of £50 to £70, depending on which version you get. Before I go into the details, I'd like to thank all the members that support us, people that have donated. Thank you for allowing me to remain independent and completely mental while shoving tea bags down my mouth. Thank you. You're on a list. Also, if you're just watching this video and you're new, you can subscribe, you can hit the bell, and you can click the like button, though I wouldn't recommend it personally. So in all their wisdom, Codemasters decided to quite drastically change how the cars handle in this game compared to the previous year's game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing on the face of it, and some aspects of the handling that they've got now aren't necessarily terrible. Certainly I think might make sense with a gamepad in many ways, but given that the new handling is effectively very unrealistic, completely arbitrary, and in some ways still quite frustrating, and last year's version of the handling was pretty frustrating, totally arbitrary, and in many ways required you to run assists on it to actually make it more realistic. You've gone from something that people learnt and kind of got used to, as weird as it was, to something new that's equally as arbitrarily wonky. Now, I will do a specific video going more in depth into how the car's handling this and how they handle compared to more realistic racing simulators like Assetto Corsa 1 or Automobilista 1. We'll do that in a separate video. But basically, all told, the handling in this, as it is now, basically it's a bit bland. It's not necessarily always as frustrating as the previous version. You can recover more aggressive slides and you can get away with some things more, but then it's still very snappy, and as I say, it's still all over the place and just requires you to learn the arbitrary nature of this game. It still very much has that feeling that they've kind of tried to do realistic car handling in a game that fundamentally does not have the underlying physics engine and tyre model to accommodate realistic handling. So I kind of wonder why they don't just do something way more simplistic that's also consistent and that also can have actually more depth to it. The end result of the driving in this is that it just feels really dull and bland to drive, and you really can't apply a lot of the stuff that you would want to use, such as turning the car in nicely on the brake pedal or getting as much precision out of the pedal steering compared to driving with the steering wheel. You very much have to drive this game with the steering wheel more than the pedals. As I say, separate video on that topic, but the handling and the physics are just a bit bloody weird. that's all you need to know. If you're like a bit of a newbie player, you're playing with assists, or you're not really driving at the limit and really pushing it on the limit, maybe you wouldn't notice. And I think you could still have a lot of fun driving it. You're going through the tracks, you're just playing the game as a role-playing game. That could be quite enjoyable. I could see how you could get into that. So that's the handling. One thing that I do think was really quite nice with this, though, and actually caught me by surprise in the time whilst we were playing it and messing around with it so far, is the AI is actually really quite good in this. Now, that's not to say that they're couldn't be better and they don't have traditional AI problems like being slow at the start of a race or knocking into you where they otherwise wouldn't, but generally speaking, the AI was really nice. Like, you see this battle here with Robo Alonso. You can have a bit of forwards and backwards. The AI is not too timid. They will try and send it up your inside. The AI will actually defend the correct lines on a lot of the tracks and do stuff that's a bit more interesting than what you traditionally get from AI in a lot of other games. So see, Alonso's put his car on the inside through there, which is what you'd want to do into this corner, making it very hard to go around the outside, and he maintains the position. Absolutely fantastic. It really caught me by surprise how good the AI is, particularly when it's just you versus one or two other cars. Again, not perfect. Still, you want to be racing real people, but yeah, I think the AI was actually really quite good. And I think, to be fair, that is something that these games have done better than other games, even going back. Now, that was actually quite positive, so let me just rectify things here. This game still doesn't have a mouse cursor. And in fact, for some bizarre reason, when I was playing this, it kept disabling my mouse in Windows. It was like a mouse cursor disease, and so I had to keep restarting my mouse to get the cursor back in Windows. So I don't know what that was about, but even Dirt Rally has a mouse cursor. I don't know how Codemasters can release a game on PC without a mouse cursor. It's absolutely bizarre. So you're trying to navigate menus using like F keys and God knows what random stuff. It's absurd. It's absolutely mental. It's insane. Then on this topic of just the sort of user experience, it would forget my wheel bindings every time I restarted the game, so I'd have to keep rebinding my wheel and redoing force feedback settings. Now I'm using a Mozart R12 House in Vale pedals. You could bind it, and they did work. The force feedback was clipping by default, and the default force feedback settings were terrible, and even with adjustment they still weren't that good anyway. The default, the wheel rotation was by default 400, even though my wheel's 900. It didn't detect that. I'm sure if you're using a Fanatec wheel or a Thrustmaster or Logitech or a gamepad, I'm sure that probably just works out the box. But Moser's quite a popular brand, as are a bunch of other equipments out there. It's just weird to just not support them. I mean, this is a AAA title and people will be playing it with a wheel and separate pedals. And then for it to just not save the settings is strange. And then the mouse, I can't explain the mouse thing. It's just some weird Codemasters aversion to mice. Then you have stuff like the graphics settings in the games that don't make any sense. The default, when I first loaded the game up, it loaded up in the corner, not full screen, and then it was the wrong resolution. Motion blur, of course, is turned to maximum. The DLSS settings and the graphics settings, of course, were set up such that we were getting like 40 FPS when our system was more than capable of getting 100 to 200 FPS. It's just like, I don't know what's going on. Obviously, they will have focused to get this looking as good as possible on the Xbox or probably the PS5, because that's where they'll get most sales. But you know, how it's not a brand new game. They've done these games for many years. It's been a decade of these games, and still the same bad default settings, graphics, controllers, you know. And then in terms of user experience as well, just going through like the character creation, a lack of custom avatar stuff. I think you maybe have to unlock and buy avatar stuff, but at least you spent £75 on it, so put quite a bit of default stuff in there, or have it so it's nice to unlock stuff. They have this crappy money system that you can then use to buy emotes and God knows what. It's like they've just, obviously in a boardroom, they've seen Fortnite, they've seen how much money those games make, and so they're like, oh, well, that's what we've got to put in this game. They really don't care if it makes sense for the game, if it's fun for the game, or if people have actually spent quite a lot of money to buy the game in the first place, and so really you shouldn't treat it like a free-to-play title. They don't care, do they? So it's just full of all that bloaty crap that effectively just gets in the way of the base enjoyment of the core product. Now, on the topic of the core product, there's no breaking point single player in this with a nice story to play through, which I thought was actually quite a good feature in previous Formula 1 games. Supposedly they alternate the years where they do that, but I'd have thought, look guys, it's a £75 game, it's the same content over and over again. A nice story that you can play through, even if it's shallow and cringy, that's a nice thing to have, isn't it? It doesn't have that. When you go through the career mode, they've tweaked and added some different elements to it, but nothing absolutely mind-blowing. Most of it's completely superficial. They playing through it so far, it's just not exciting. The game, the best way to summarise this is it feels like Formula 1 itself, as we go for textbook pit stop there, nice job. Formula 1 itself is bizarre, just super mega corporate, soulless sport that's basically about just being super rich, get selected into a driver program as a rich kid, and then find yourself in Formula 1, and then it's just a business, really. It's not really a sport, it's a business. F1 drivers are super talented at driving, but, you know, they're stuck in cars dependent on what the teams do. I guess it's a Constructors' Championship. I know this whole debate, but we have 2 races a weekend, so we could have Formula 1 drivers in F2 cars. So we can have a Drivers' Championship on the Saturday, Constructors' Championship on the Sunday. Anyway, the point I'm making is F1 is just a weird late stage capitalism, bizarro corporate thing. So maybe it's not a surprise that the F1 game mirrors that soulless corporate nature in both what you do whilst you're playing this, the sort of soulless handling as well, but then also the sort of soulless nature of playing through the game, the lack of excitement, the lack of dynamicism, the fact that you get money to then buy stuff, but it's all dull and miserable. it's as I say, this game just feels like a designed in a boardroom, and I'm sure there's some really good, talented, passionate people that work on this at Codemasters, but I just feel like they're probably not given enough freedom or time to actually, you know, execute on what they're more than capable of executing. That's the depressing thing, really. The developers lose out, the players lose out, but someone's making money, so it's all good. So maybe this is actually a very accurate simulation of Formula 1 in a roundabout way. Yeah, you know, as you can tell, I found this thrilling and I've been delighted to play it. I can totally see how you could have fun playing it, you know. I think the tracks actually look fantastic. You know, the graphics at times look really nice in this. It's got all the stuff that the previous Formula 1 game had in it, the structure. You can role play through it. So I can totally see if you didn't maybe play previous Formula 1 games, maybe if you're playing with a gamepad, maybe you're younger and you've got lower expectations, you haven't calcified your brain by drinking too much tea, and you certainly have not watched BBC Parliament much, or indeed, you know, you just don't know anything. Maybe it's fine. Your parents just buy you the game and you just accept it for what it is and you just go along with it. Maybe it's fine. But all in all, if you've got the previous game, or you've played any driving simulator or many arcade driving games going through time, you know, even like Wipeout, Split Second, Burnout, even like the older like Formula 1 games going back, like, you know, like even F1 97 is more compelling as a bloody video game, or even like 2D stuff on the SNES. Nigel Mansell's World Championship, I'm not old, I promise. Even that was exciting. You know, it's just, yeah, you just, if you come at this from a complete point of ignorance to the previous game and many previous games before them, from other developers and Codemasters themselves, then maybe you can enjoy it. I'm trying to put a bit of a positive spin, but really, we'll see what happens. Now, supposedly, they're doing a physics change because all the esports drivers have kicked up a fuss about the current handling. So that will be interesting to see what happens. And as I say, if you've got this on Game Pass, you can play through it. So, but yeah, for most people, the vast majority of people, I really would. I wouldn't spend this £70 on this. Like, think what you can buy with £70. Think how many boxes of Yorkshire tea that is. That's a lot of tea bags. £70 is a lot of money for a game as well. It's surprising to me that we've got back to this. That's how much it used to cost for a physical Nintendo 64 cartridge. Again, I'm definitely sounding very old here, but you know, GoldenEye on the N64, that was £70, but that was a plastic cartridge in a box that had to be shipped to a store, which then had like chips on it that at the time were expensive. At least like 70 megabytes in a cartridge, guys. God, so you were getting a physical thing for your money, and now we're paying £70 for a reprint of the last year's video game distributed digitally. Absolute madness. Right, I mean, hopefully this video is useful. The best thing that you guys can do is, if you've got a question or you want me to answer something, you can just let me know in the comments section and I can answer it that way, or in a future video. I definitely want to do a video talking about the handling between this and sims, because I always think that's an interesting thing to compare. Like, not saying what's better or worse or getting upset like I do with iRacing's tyre model, but it's always interesting just seeing what was intended and what happened and how that affects gameplay. That's the sort of game designery part of me, just finds that fascinating. So that'd be fun to do. It'll be fun for me, maybe terrible for you guys to watch. But all said and done, thank you very much for watching this. For those of you that got this far in the video, could you type in the comments, I agree that I disagree with what Game & Muscle agrees that he disagrees with. I'll see you guys back on the track when we do Racing with Subscribers, live streamed on here, YouTube and on Twitch. That will be in, of course, the glorious, the beautiful Assetto Corsa. Blessed be the DD Gill. May your force feedback be strong and detailed. Happy tea drinking and goodbye.